Okay, so this is going to be just a simple walkthrough of a app that I currently have that's using the Nextjs 13 app router, and just some of the things I'm learning as I'm going, yeah. So what is this project? It is a port application of Kent C. Dodds Frontend Masters advanced remix workshop. So if we come to courses, let's just look for Kent C. Dodds. It is this advanced remix app. And in this course, he builds a invoicing app using Remix to demonstrate just a lot of the awesome things you can do in Remix. So yeah, as we go through, kind of show where there's some current areas that aren't quite up to, or don't really know how they'll get to some of the stuff that Remix does. This isn't necessarily a comparison video. It's just what can we currently do in this app. So Remix does things like optimistic UI and pending UI and those types of things really, really well. And I think over the next couple of months and the rest of this year, the app router and React server components will develop out that story a little bit better, mutations and that type of thing. But right now, this is just kind of where things are. Yeah, let's just look at this app. So what's happening here, I think the first thing to talk about is nested layouts. And so just falls in the category, or in the routing category. And some of this is not stuff I'll really go through, but this falls in kind of the pages and layouts. So the way to do nested layouts, this kind of makes sense, but you have a layout in the root of your app directory, and it has to be called root layout. This can be a server component or a client component. It's currently a server component because you don't see use client here, and it could be async as well if you want it to be. But right now we are just returning our body tag and wrapping all the children in this nav bar, which I should have called it sidebar because it's a sidebar, but that's not really the point. So this sidebar will wrap all child routes. So the way to define a route in Nextjs, or in the app router, is you use this folder page convention. So this accounts page will resolve to localhost 3000/accounts. So if we click on this page, we know we have whatever this content is. We click on accounts. We should probably start our app. That would be helpful. Then we come back, and we are at our accounts route. So now we have our accounts information. So there's not really nested layouts happening here. This layout is being applied to a route. I don't know if you would call this a nested route, but the way we can actually see this is if we go into our sales route, and we have another layout here. So if we come back to our app and we click sales, we see we get this sales header. And by the way, I am using GitHub OAuth with Nextauth here. So here, I'll just sign out and you'll be taken to the login screen, and then we can just sign back in and we'll be back at our sales. We could be back at our sales. I can fix that in a second. So now we have this sales nav. Let's actually fix that real quick. So if we come into our, is this login? Is this where we do it? I'm just rendering sign in. Okay. So sign in, sign out. So you get a cool hook in Next 13, so we can say import usePathname from Next navigation, and then in both of these functions we can just say path name equals usePathname, and then what that will do is it just gets whatever the path name is of the current route, so whatever in the URL. So sign out, we probably won't sign out to take us to a login screen, that makes sense, but say we are somehow on a deep page, we can just say path name, and we'll probably have to change it to, we'll have to say as string. So anyway, that wasn't that big of a deal, but that just makes it nicer. So like if we sign out here, sign out takes us to login. This will take us back to the home page probably, but that would make sense on like here I can show you on like a blog, a blog, as if it's not my blog. So if we come to the articles page, let's say we're here and we wanted to stay here, or even better, we can just go to an article and say we're on this page, but so we don't want to be signed in. We just want it to keep us on that same page and just keep reading. So it should just, it'll refresh it, but sign us out. And if you sign in, that path name hook gives us the path name and lets us stay wherever we are if we want. That's just kind of what I've currently done. So that is a little aside. That was not meant to be here, but thought it was fun. So where are we at? So nested layouts. So we have this root layout with the sidebar on it. Now if we go to sales, we have our sales header, and then we can have, we can keep nesting it down, and where we can see this is in our sales route, in our customers. Both invoices and customers will do this, but if we go to the customer ID, well, in customers, we see we have a layout, and then we have a customer's ID with a page on it. Don't worry about this sales thing for now. So if we come back over here, we click customers. This is a layout. And then if we click on a customer name, this is a new error for me. Oh. And now it works. Okay. So if we come back, let's just do customers again. So we're back at this customer's layout. If we click on the customer, now we have that here. And so what that is really happening, what's really happening here is we have layout 1 over here, which is the sidebar, layout 2, which is the header, layout 3, which is the customer page with this information that lists our customer, and that customer layout wraps its children, which is then this content over here, which is pretty cool. You can nest down deep like that. Again, invoices does the same thing. So if we click invoices, we now are 3 layouts deep with this page, and then we click the customer or the invoice, and then we get the invoice information. So cool. That's nested routing. And there is one other thing to cover. Parallel routes isn't something I've worked with yet, but intercepting routes is pretty fun. So if we go to, this kind of came up the other day on Twitter with Tim Newkins. I hope I said his name right. Let's just look at this this Nextgram, next version of Instagram. So with image sites or like e-commerce type stuff, if you have this like this page of all the images or page of all the products, typically if you click on a product, you don't want to interrupt like the full flow of the page you were on. You still want to go back to the page and look at other options. So for images here, what this looks like is it opens up this modal, but this modal is not like your general modal. It's actually a route, and it's an intercepting route. So it's using this dot convention, this parentheses dot convention, which is similar to, as it says, relative paths. So it's as if you're going up a directory and then reading something. So here you can see that with the feed it's going up a directory into the photo and getting the ID, which is this right here. So it intercepts this route first and displays a different UI that you want it to have. So in that different UI here is this photo modal, but you see here it's got the photos and ID too. So if you click off of it, you're back where you were, you're scrolling. But if, again, here's where my knowledge kind of falls. I don't really know why you would want to refresh or what would happen that would refresh it, but if you refresh it, you're taken to the product page or the photo page. So we can go back and, but that's pretty cool. And where that works itself into the demo app we have over here is currently, say we're on a customer, we want to see all customer information for this promotional signs and graphics. So, customer information for promotional signs and graphics. So we have 2 invoices on this customer. One's overdue. So if we want to see that invoice information, typically you don't want to be taken to a whole new page. You just want give me the quick information, like what's overdue, like how long is it overdue, blah, blah, blah. But typically it would take you to a completely different page. So just to show this, like in our invoices, if we go to this first invoice, and it's like, okay, this invoice is for this customer. Let's go look at this customer information. It takes us to the full customer page. But we might want that to just give us a pop-up like UI or some different UI that shows us the information without navigating us away from where we were. So here in the customers, I'll show you how that looks here. Because in my on the customer page, so the ID page, so we're using the link and we're going to sales invoices invoice ID. The way that we intercept that is, I believe I'm correct in saying this, but you have to intercept it at whatever path you're navigating to. So I couldn't do like the dot here, or you can CD up as many directories as you are nested deep. So I couldn't do dot and go up because it's not actually intercepting sales. It would just be moving over a directory rather than going and intercepting the sales route. So here the triple dot here moves you up into the app directory. And then we're going into the app directory, into the sales directory, into our invoices, and then into this invoice ID. So over here on our customer page, this route will be intercepted. Now if we click on this invoice ID, we'll get a different UI for the invoice rather than being navigated to a full invoice page. So if we click it, we get a little modal with the invoice ID. The one thing you'll notice that I haven't quite figured out yet is in right now we are getting the correct route for this invoice. But because the invoice is on a different, like we've moved up to the sales route and gone down into the invoices, when we click off of this, it won't send us back to the correct ID. You'd even see this, or the correct route we were on. So it doesn't let us continue to go through our customer invoices. And so you can actually see over here it's taken that UI out. And if we click out of this, the route doesn't change back. So I'm not 100% sure how to give that the behavior we want it to have. Because if we open this again, we click on the invoice. Whenever we click off of the page, we want this route to be back where we were, and we want everything to be the same. So that's currently not. I don't have it working. I'm probably doing something wrong, I would imagine. But then if we click on this again and we click refresh, it should send us to the customer or to the invoice, this page. It should send us to the URL, but the full page for that. And there we go. And so that works because this is that invoice. So that's kind of how intercepting routes work. To that point, I probably have some optimization to do as far as the best way of doing the route intercepting. But I think it's mostly, the issue here is mostly on my end, mostly due to on the, where was it at? Was it on the customer ID page? On this page, the link is sending, it probably has to do with how you're navigating throughout your app. But I'm not 100% on that. So as I get clarity on that, I'll update things. What else do we have? We can look at currently. Okay, so currently I'm using API routes for submitting data to the database. So if we come over here and let's say we want to create a new invoice. Let's do it for the same thing. Let's just give it today. Actually, let's make it due on Friday. And we'll do 1 unit. And unit price, let's do $40 for a Vercel hoodie. So we can create invoice. So what that just did, we added a new invoice here and it navigated us to the page. But what that was doing behind the scenes is in our sales, invoices, new invoice, we are just using a React server component and posting to an API route. TypeScript. So in this API route, we're posting to create invoice. So API route, create invoice. And so here we're just handling all that, if there's not a session, if somehow they manage to get to that route without having a session, we're just going to give them an error. And then this is all just getting the information for the creating the invoice. And then we are doing that. I'm using Prisma and PlanetScale. We're creating it, and then we're just navigating to that ID. That's pretty cool. But I did talk with Dan Abramov. I'm probably not pronouncing his name correct, but he kind of looked at this at some point and said that this is not the best way of currently doing this, at least from the perspective of giving good user feedback, because there's no the form, as you could see, there's not really any feedback for them any validation or anything like that. So you can probably still go the old route of creating a client component form and then using Zod or hook form, React hook form to do good form validation. And that's it for this little walkthrough. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at Ben A. Patton. I hope this helps. Thanks.